Hi everyone, my name's Vanessa. If you're new here, hello, welcome to my channel. I like to talk about books. Today I'm going to be talking about some fan theories, some expectations or predictions I have for book 2 in the Crescent City series. The first one being House of Earth and Blood. This came out in March this year, I think, and book 2, it's still titleless. The only thing we know about is that it's going to be here in November 2021. I don't know how I'm going to wait a year and a half for the second book, but you know, I can't do anything about that. I'm just going to have to reread this closer to the time so that I'm refreshed on this world and the storyline, because this has so much in it. This is nearly 900 pages. The second one is expected to be about 1,000 pages, which is a lot of work for Sarah J Maas. I mean, the writing is like so small in this as well. The amount of detail in this is just amazing. If you want to see what my reactions are for to it about this book in particular, I did have a reading vlog and review up on my channel. It's just a couple of videos back. Watch that one before you come back and watch this one. Obviously, this is predictions and expectations for book 2, so if you haven't read book 1, this video will just be full of spoilers. This is Sarah J Maas's third series, so I will be talking about the themes that were prevalent in her first and second series, which is the Throne of Glass series and the Court of Thorns and Roses series. So if you also don't want to be spoiled with the general theme of them books as well, because I will be talking about how them two series are similar and what might be similar in the third series, which is this one. Also, maybe not watch this video. We need a nice place to put this so that it's like on view. Maybe there. So I do have quite a lot of notes and theories to get through. Basically what I've done is I've spent all day on Reddit, on Tumblr, on areas of the internet I didn't even know exist, and looking at the most common fan theories and coming to a conclusion about what I think of that theory, whether it's realistic, whether I expect it. I've read absolutely thousands of them, and I'm just going to talk about ones that sort of back up what I would expect from the second book. So first and foremost, the biggest expectation is the title of the book. We still don't have this yet. However, I believe, and the majority of readers believe, that it's going to be A House of Sky and Breath. Book 1 is called A House of Earth and Blood, which is the house that our main character Bryce belongs to, but the other main house that's prevalent in the series is House of Sky and Breath. And I also do believe that there is a chance for it to be House of Flame and Shadows, but maybe more so for like book 3. I don't actually know how many books there's going to be in this. It's expected to be a trilogy, but there's 4 houses, which makes me think that hopefully, anyway, there might be 4 books. So now, as far as plot goes and the world, we did see an awful lot of this huge world in book 1. However, there is some that we didn't necessarily dive into. The main one for me that I would love to see developed more in book 2 is the Bone Quarter. The Bone Quarter is this place where people who have died go. We touched upon that a little bit when Danica died, but not necessarily about what it's like to be there, what it's like to live there, and also anything about the Underking, I think that's what he's called, who is the person that sort of runs that quarter. And I think that would be a really interesting place to visit. The other places I would love if we could visit Mer City. Mer City is the place where mermaids and creatures live that are part of the House of Many Waters. It's very briefly described in the book 1, but not in any great depth at all, even though we are introduced to Farion, who is one of the main side characters, and that's where he comes from. So I'm expecting that he might take us into there in book 2. Another place I'm sort of expecting to visit, but mainly on the back of other theories, is also Hell. There's not a lot of description for there in terms of what it's like in book 1, but it does start to develop the people that live there, such as the 7 princes of Hell, and we're introduced to a character called Aidas, who we only saw for like 4 pages, but it's very heavily hinted that he's going to become one of the main characters of the series, and a lot of people have a lot of wild theories about him, so we're going to touch on him a little bit later. One of the main things that I would love to see in this book is some more information about Fury. Fury is part of Bryce's friendship circle. They used to be better friends, but then they stopped being as good friends as what they are. Nobody really knows who Fury is, not even Bryce. They think that she might be some sort of mercenary or assassin. It's clear that she has a lot of power in society, but she mainly lives, you know, in another land and then just sort of shows up when something is going down. Fury is quite prevalent, and Bryce's mourning of their friendship is quite prevalent in book 1. And I expected from the start, because Fury is introduced very early on, that by the end of the book we would have some sort of information about who Fury was and what her backstory is. There's also some expectation that in book 2 Sarah J Maas is going to introduce more points of view, and that's something that is quite common in her other 2 series, especially in the Throne of Glass series, where come book 4 she'd introduced so many new characters who all had their own point of views. And I do kind of hope that Fury gets her own point of view with some sort of story about what she is doing abroad. I just think that would be a really cool addition, because she seems like she has the potential to have a really great side story going on. And as Sarah J Maas has done it before, I kind of hope that it's done in this one as well, but with her and not with brand new characters. Also, going off the theme of what Sarah J Maas has done in the past, a very big expectation from this fan base in general is that Sarah J Maas is going to introduce a second love interest. This is a trend which did completely put me off Throne of Glass, because I didn't like that she introduced us to 2 potential love interests, and then a couple of books down the line there was a new one introduced who we didn't know anything about. We didn't know his backstory or anything. He just came across as really arrogant, and I didn't like it, and that's what put me off the series. But in this one I would be more open to a second love interest, and I think the foundations are there for it to be done in a very good way. And that's mainly because of criticism of Hunt himself. Hunt did not come out of the first book smelling like roses. He'd done some pretty crappy stuff, especially to Bryce, keeping a lot of information from her, and he's also clearly still in love with his ex-girlfriend or ex-partner. And it is another theory that she isn't dead and that in some way she might come back, but that's also related to another theory which I'm going to talk on a little bit later. As I was reading the fan theories for this, it is quite obvious that not a lot of people like Hunt as a love interest, mainly for the reasons that I have mentioned, just that he doesn't seem like he can be trusted. And I completely agree with that. I do like Hunt and Bryce's relationship. I love the enemies to lovers trope, and I think it was done really well in the first book. But I also don't think that he maybe is the one for Bryce. But he isn't actually Bryce's first love interest. I believe he's called Connor. I've actually not looked in the book for any of these. Was her first love interest, and he was killed off. So technically he is the second love interest, but he's the main first love interest. Now, a lot of people seem to think that the second love interest has actually already been introduced to the series, and I kind of ship this as well. But a lot of people see Bryce and Aidas being end goal. Aidas is very briefly in the first book, but when he's in it, he made such a big impact. Bryce summons him from hell. He is a demon, and he is one of the 7 princes of hell. He's Prince of the Chasm. And when he's in the room, when he's summoned by Bryce, he sort of turns the room very cold. And if he's in Bryce's presence for so long, he could have killed her. But he can also turn into animals as well. He is sort of referenced in the book as of having met Bryce in the past in the form of a cat, and he also does make an appearance in the epilogue as a cat as well, and makes some hints about the role he may play in future books. This makes sense to me because in the previous series by Sarah J Maas, the main character, the females, are introduced, and there is something that stands out about them. They've got a lot of character and they've got a lot of strength, but then something happens to them which sort of elevates them in status, and it's usually related to who they are and sort of like a royal lineage. Now that Bryce has gone through a change and she is now clearly the superior starborn in her lineage, I do think that that has elevated her in status, and I think that's why Sarah J Maas might bring along, you know, a Prince of Hell as a suitable companion for her. However, there is a lot more to that, which I'm going to go into a little bit later on. But I do think that the potential is there to make an obvious move away from Hunt being the love interest into someone else. Like I've said, I don't believe that Shahar is necessarily dead, and a lot of people don't. Maybe this is just a wild theory that I just pulled out for now, that Bryce and Hunt travel to hell, and that's where Bryce sort of gets a relationship with Aidas, and Hunt finds Shahar there in hell. and maybe that's how they sort of uncouple them and recouple with these people. I don't know if that would just be like too much convenience though. What I loved a lot about the first book was that it introduced a lot of mythology, magic and history. This book sort of introduces the Fae history way back into like First Wars, Second Wars, wars that happened like 10,000 years ago, the creation of the city, how it went from being a human-led city to being Vanairs and angels. And it introduces this concept of being starborn. And I really, really love how much depth this book has, and I do expect for more mythology to be introduced into the second book surrounding the magic systems and political society. Speaking of political society, obviously the angels in the first book were sort of seen as like the top dog a little bit, even though that we have all these separate districts that are run by, you know, fae and werewolves and shapeshifters. The angels were sort of like the top dog a little bit. Now that the angels have been sort of put to shame by the acts of, what was he called? Begins with an M. I can't even remember what the main bad guy is called. I'm so sorry. Now that he has put them to shame, I do expect that the werewolves will want to rise up and take revenge. Maybe even the fae coming out with, you know, we have a really, really strong far fae here who is very much blessed with starborn powers. Maybe they sort of try to take over a little bit, but obviously werewolves have been totally lied to. They've been murdered by angels and they are gonna want to take revenge. So I do suspect that that's gonna put the seeds in for war maybe. And following on from that, I do expect that Run is going to take a bigger part to play in fae society as a whole. I think his position will be elevated by Bryce. I really, really love his and Bryce's relationship, and I do expect that they're going to grow more together and sort of repair the relationship that they've lost. I really, really like that Sarah J Maas took the decision to not make Run resentful of Bryce for having a power that people thought that he possessed. Obviously he does possess a little bit of starlight, but nowhere near as much as what Bryce did, but he just doesn't seem to mind. He doesn't seem to want the power at all, and I love that he could have turned around and just said, well, I don't like this person because she has what I want and she could be what I want to be, because it's not like that at all. And I really like Sarah J Maas for doing that, and I would love for Run to be sort of like the uplifter of Bryce, but I do hope that Bryce sort of rewards him in return. Also, I fully expect that him and the Witch Queen, the new Witch Queen, are going to get together romantically. I think the foundation is there for that. I'm pretty sure that's a done deal. Some people think that she might end up with Tharion, but honestly I see him more with Juniper. I don't know why, but Juniper and Tharion relationships, I think so. Like, I'm pretty sure that's gonna happen, and if it does, you heard it here first. Come back and give this video a like because I am a foreshadower. Okay, so the next entire page of my notebook is mainly around Jesiba, and I have a lot of questions about Jesiba which I've been left with from the first book, which leads me into some of the things I think are going to drive the plot in book 2. I think she's going to become a very central character. We might even get a point of view from her. So the main question that I had from the first book in regards to her character was, why did she leave the witches for the Underking, who is the head of the Bone Quarter, and how did she come in the possession of the Great Library of Parthos? If you don't remember, that library was sort of like an ancient, almost like a legend. People assumed that this library had existed and was destroyed when the angels came and pretty much took the city away from the humans. Humans died to protect this library because it contained books that proved that they weren't inferior to the Vanir and to the Asteri. So these books contain a lot of magic and a lot of power to humans, and this is why the Asteri and the angels have been trying to find this library so that they can destroy it in full. One of the great twists of the novel was that this library was not destroyed, and that actually Bryce had been working there this whole time, but she never knew about it. Obviously Jesiba, who was the owner of the antiquity store, knew that she was sitting on this library of great power to humans, and I want the connection as to why that she had it when it's something that's so important to humans and those that aren't of magical powers. I think the fact that Jesiba has been sitting on this library I think that points or is an indication of her age. I think she's very, very, very old, a lot older than what she seems. And I think that she was around the time that this library was at its prime, sort of before all these wars, before the Asteri. I think that she totally predates that. I saw one theory which I sort of ran with in my own head, that she was human. She's not loyal to the witches because she wasn't born a witch. Maybe she approached witches and when she was human and sort of asked for immortal powers so that she could guard this library. And to me that makes so much sense, that she actually is very loyal to humans. And the only reason that she's affiliated with the witches is because she was granted powers so that she could look after this library for infinite and beyond her natural life. Which, now I'm thinking about it, would completely make sense as to why she would now be affiliated with the Bone Quarter, because maybe that's the only way that she can see some of her old friends and relatives. Yeah, that's pretty good. That would make a lot of sense. I feel like Jesiba actually really hates the angels and the Asteri, mainly because she has a gun that can kill archangels. And I don't understand how someone could possess such an item in this world which is so overrun by archangels. The fact that she possesses that, to me, means that she is of very great importance, and that she's... I mean, she obviously was aware that she was hiding this library from the angels for starters, because she had that weapon. But I also expect that maybe she is of someone of an older society and she was of a high rank from there. But how she come about this gun, I hope is explained in book 2. As per what happened in the epilogue between her and Aidas, I do believe that they have known each other for a very long time, that Aidas is also a very old character. A lot of people think that the epilogue hinted to some negative thoughts, that she is against the Starborn and that she is therefore against Bryce. They think that the events that happened and that her and Aidas sort of commenting on them came from a place of negativity and that she might be the new villain. Personally, I don't trust her, but I don't think that that is the case. To me, I think that she had Bryce in her employment, known who Bryce was from the start. I think her and Aidas knew from the very start, maybe before she was born or at birth or when they first met her. I think they knew who she was. I think possibly these are also from the time of a character that was very briefly mentioned, but I think we'll come into it more. I believe she was called Queen Thea. I think that's how you pronounce it. She was very briefly mentioned, but she was a queen from the First War era who was a queen of Starborn. And I think that there's going to be some link between her and Bryce, and that Jesiba and Aidas are from an era when she was there or alive. And maybe they're going to tie Bryce in with that whole history somehow. So yeah, I think that the antiquities shop could have been an entire cover. Well, it was obviously a cover for the library, but I also think that it was a cover for keeping Bryce safe and keeping an eye on her. But it could also be the case that they're just keeping an eye on her because they want to go against Bryce and want to get rid of her, but then they would have done so before she made the drop. So to me that makes no sense. I just think that they were protecting her until she made the drop. Aidas even encouraged her to make the drop and then go and see him, so they obviously wanted to bring out these powers in her and make her more immortal. Also, as per Jesiba's and Aidas's chat, they also mention who Hunt's father is, but they don't actually say who he is. They just reference Hunt's father. And it's very briefly mentioned that somewhere in the book that he was raised by his mother and that his father wasn't there, he just paid him maintenance. So his father obviously isn't present, and going off Bryce's experience of her father being like a king that she didn't know, I think that that might be the case over here. And there is some theories about who Hunt's father may be. And it mainly relates to Hunt's real name being Orion. And there's two more prevalent theories about this. One of them is that his father is the king of hell himself. And this is mainly because Orion is the son of Poseidon in Greek mythology. And it does seem like Sarah J Maas has very much pulled on mythology. I mean, the word veneer, mid-god, it all seems very much mythology based. So they're thinking, people assume that, you know, Poseidon, who is the king of water, but mainly stuff below land, could also mean that Orion as in our character Orion, may be the son of the King of Hell. I don't know how much credence I give to this one. I personally like the second one better, and that is that he's the son of the 7th Asteri who is dead. This is because that Asteri is called Sirius, and Sirius is the brightest star in the Orion constellation. And I think them two names sort of just bring them together so well, and that is what I'm sort of expecting from book 2, is that we're going to find out that he's the son of an Asteri. This, I think, would elevate Hunt in status, sort of like Bryce has been raised in status, like I mentioned at the start of this video, how she sort of like seemed to have outgrown him a little bit. He would be elevated also to a level of being godlike, although I don't know if this would just make them a perfect match, or it would send him and Bryce into war with each other. And that's what I'm leaning on most, is that it would drive them apart and make them natural enemies. Although that wouldn't be fitting with his character storyline so far, because he's seen as a character that is rebellious against angels and archangels and the Asteri. So I don't know how that would tie into it. I don't know if maybe his realization that he is of this godlike ability would maybe send him on a power trip. I don't know, I guess we're gonna have to find out in November 2021. One thing that I really don't want from these books is for this to turn into Aelin 2.0, because I feel like that is the road we're going down at the moment. I really hope that Sarah J Maas wouldn't just recycle what has worked for her in the past and brought out a new adult series which is basically the same. To me, I can't understand the logic in an author doing the same thing again in a different series. You know, you'd want to take a different direction so it's not predictable. But I feel like there's so many similarities between Bryce's and Aelin's storylines, especially if they introduce a second love interest. Aelin was this character who was very special but became even more special because of an ability that she didn't know she had, and she was also Fae, which is what Bryce is. And I just very much worry that we're going to see a lot of similarities in these two series. I haven't read A Court of Thorns and Roses, so I can't comment on that side of it, but I have seen a lot of people comparing the storylines between this one and that series, book 1 and book 2 especially as well. So yes, there are some fan theories about Crescent City book 2, some of my predictions and expectations, but I just really want to stress that I hope that this series is taking a completely different road than what Throne of Glass did. I hope this is an Aelin 2.0. I know a lot of people loved her as a character, but I think even people that love that series would agree that we need something fresh and different. I love where she's going with this book, and I love where she's going with this series. I do like it a lot more than her other works. The second series I just couldn't stand at all. I just gave book 1 star and gave up on it. I got about 4 books in the Throne of Glass and really didn't like it and stopped reading it. This one to me has a lot of potential, it's well written, and I love the world that she's built for it. It is so in depth. It's like an urban fantasy, but it's high fantasy as well at the same time, because it's just so different. It's got so many elements to it and a lot of characters that I love. So thank you for joining me for this video. I hope you're well. Please subscribe to me if you haven't already, and also share this video with your friends who are also crazed Crescent City fans. I will see you in the next video. Bye!